What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the vlog. Today we're going to be talking about the C6 Corvette Z06 and some hidden costs that you might not know about. All right, guys, so as you know from the previous videos, I have recently purchased a 2008 C6 Corvette Z06, and I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about the real cost, what you're actually going to pay for a car like the one that I purchased. Now, right off the bat, the one that I've grabbed is a really good example of a C6 Z06. There is a lot of really good quality pieces to this car. There's no scratches, there's no tears in the leather. It really looks like the car was treated really well its entire life. Now, that is not necessarily all of the C6 Z06s, unfortunately. Some of them out there have led kind of a beat up life or kind of a hard life. But at the end of the day, I didn't overpay for the one that I got. And with that said, there's still a lot of things that you may want to know about the price of the car that are more so hidden fees. Now, we'll get more into all of those in a second, but we're going to start with the main purchase price. I bought the car for $46,000. Now, I actually purchased this from a friend of mine, so I got a little bit of a deal. Typically, these cars will go for closer to $50,000. Just because of the quality of this one. Like I said, it is a 2008, but it only had 10,000 miles on it. So right off the bat, I got a pretty good deal. You can factor in probably closer to 50,000 for a car of your own. Now, after that, there are more fees to get it situated for the state of Pennsylvania. So I had to pay the sales tax. I had to pay registration and any of the dealer fees or PennDOT fees basically to get the car transferred over into my name and get a plate. So after all that, that was an additional $2,000. So right off the bat, we're at 48 grand for this 2008 Z06. After the purchase price, there are other things you can kind of count on. And one of the hidden fees is going to be the valve issue. So if you guys don't know, the issue with the valves on the Z06 is kind of a controversial issue. Some people say it's necessary to fix, some people don't. GM is on the side of the people who don't think it's necessary. So they say that only 10% of the Z06s were affected with this issue. Now, I personally don't know if it's that or higher, but at the same time, I don't really want to take the chance that this 2008 is going to have that issue. So I've priced it out. I've talked to a couple different shops, and we're looking at about $2,500, including labor, to get those valves fixed. Now, that is if we don't touch anything else while we're in there. And if you guys know the process, it makes sense to do more than just the valves in the beginning. We also could possibly do a cam and stuff like that. If you go that route, you're talking more about around 5 grand. But either way, that is one of those hidden costs because most cars don't necessarily need a fix for the valves right after you buy it. But in this case, this is something you probably should factor into your initial cost. Now, after that, we can go down the list of the more important things or the more real expenses. The big one is going to be car insurance. Now, my car insurance is actually really good. I pay a really good rate for my cars. I have a ZR1, a Cadillac XT5, a Ram TRX, and now ultimately the C6 Z06, all on the same policy. So I do get a multi-car discount. With that said, it was an extra $331 a year for me to add the C6 Z06 to my policy. Now, since we're talking more so about monthly costs, we're going to break that down to what I pay monthly, and it ends up being around $27 or $28 per month to insure the C6 Z06 at full coverage. Like I said, I do have a really good insurance policy. I am currently with Erie Insurance, for those of you who want to know, but that is something from what I understand is only in the Pennsylvania area. Your results may vary. Obviously, it depends on the age of the person driving and your driving record. My driving record is pretty clean. I am 37 years old, so if you're older, it may go down. If you're younger, it may go up. These are the costs as I see them. So right now we are at about $28 monthly for the C6 Z06. And what comes next is going to be one that affects all of us, and it is the gas prices. Now, the gas in this particular car has to be 93. You're not going to be able to load it up with 87 or 89 or any kind of ethanol or anything unless you go the modified route. So at stock value, it is 93 gasoline. And here in Pennsylvania, I can get it as cheap as $3.85 a gallon. At $3.85 a gallon, the miles per gallon in the car ranges between 17 and like 24, I think it was. And of course, the way I drive, we're more so towards the 17 miles per gallon. So I'm going to estimate it at the absolute worst possible, because the car very rarely sees the highway. The gas tank on the C6 Z06 is an 18-gallon tank, and it will cost me about $70 to fill it up with 93 from empty to full. And with the way I drive, it is going to get me about 300 miles per full tank of gas. And based on how much I drive a month, it's going to cost me right around $200, a little more than $200 if I drive a little bit more than usual per month just in gas alone. So again, depending on where you live and what your gas prices are, you can factor in about $200 to $250 a month in just gas alone, depending on how much you drive. Me, I'm typically putting between 600 and 900 miles per month on this car. That's about what I would pay. So we have $250 per month for gas and about $27 a month for insurance in my particular case. Now, the next big expense for a car like that is going to be tires. So as you guys know, the tires are pretty important on a performance car because it's got to be able to get that power to the ground. And with a Corvette, especially this particular Corvette, being as light as it is, it's kind of hard to get the power to the ground with anything but one of the stickiest available tires. Now in my case, the car was just outfitted with brand new Michelin Sport 4S tires before I picked it up, so this isn't an expense I have to worry about right off the bat, but your mileage may vary. If you're going to buy a used C6, you're probably not going to get one with brand new tires, and if that's the case, this is something you would want to factor in as well. Now, with the Sport 4S tires, they're pretty good for this car. They grip really well, they look good, the performance is pretty good, they last for a while. This is the tire I would recommend if you have the stock setup. Now in my case, it is the stock wheels, which is 19 in the rear, 18s in the front, and that particular setup comes out to about $1,800 shipped on TireRack.com. So if you want to do the same kind of tire setup, you will be right around $1,800. This is something you're going to want to factor into your overall expenses, your overall price on this car. As you guys know, tires in general are pretty expensive nowadays, especially when you're putting them on the Corvette. This ZR1 that's sitting behind me is closer to $2,400, all said with the Sport Cup 2s. At $1,800, it's not horrible. It's not really the greatest either. It's just an expense you're going to want to keep in mind when getting a car like the C6 Z06. So one of the last expenses we're going to talk about today for the C6 is going to be brakes. So there's a couple things with high-end sports cars or high-performance sports cars that you kind of have to keep in mind as soon as you buy the car, and one of them is tires, which we already talked about. The other one is brakes. The car is going to go through brakes just because of the nature of the beast. Now, with that said, this particular car, it's not that expensive. I actually found a really high-performance set of Hawk ceramic brake pads that were about $200 for the fronts and about $170 for the rear. So right there, we're at $370. And then the rotors, if you go with the stock style rotors, you can actually get them on Amazon for $70 each for the fronts and about $70 each for the rears as well. So right there, you're at another $280. You're at about $550 after taxes and shipping, which is not bad at all, especially when you compare it to something like the C7 Z06 with the carbon ceramic rotors or the C7 ZR1 here. The rotors themselves are a little over $2,000 a piece. So yeah, the iron rotors of the C6 are definitely going to be cheaper, and you'll still maintain the kind of stock setup if you grab the AC Delco or stock GM style front and rear rotors. The C6 Z06 did have a Z07 option, which gave you the carbon ceramic rotors, but if you don't have that option, the Z06 is the last car that you can really get that doesn't cost you a lot of money to maintain. The idea of the brakes being as cheap as they are, the tires aren't super expensive. They're not necessarily cheap either, but they do get more expensive, believe it or not. The gas and even the insurance. I was pleased with the amount that the insurance was going to cost me on this Z06. Now, I did have a C7 Z06 before my ZR1, and both of them were between $600 and $800 a year on insurance. So it was almost double what the C6 Z06 is costing me. So odds are good your results would be somewhere in that same category. With all that said, the power is not that much different. You're putting down pretty good power with the C6, and aftermarket-wise, you can put down even more. So basically, you could have a C6 Z06 for around $50,000 in really good condition and pay less than a couple $100 a month to maintain it, and that includes your gas. So anyway, guys, that's pretty much it. Hopefully this gave you some indication as to how your Z06 would fit into your budget and how much it would ultimately cost you. If you guys have any questions about this stuff, shoot them in the comment section down below. I would be glad to answer anything you may have. And as always, guys, I will catch you in the next upload.